Well, Qatar Airways has been in the news and also here on the channel quite a bit lately. So when I read this exclusive Reuters story last week about Qatar Airways pilots saying they are being overworked by the airline and deprived of legally required rest, I thought you'd like to hear about it as well. However, the problem is that many of these pilots fail to file fatigue reports out of the fear that it could cost them their jobs. Qatar's pilot problem is next on Maximus. Greetings everybody, Maximus here. Well, this exclusive story comes by way of Reuters News. It's funny because sometimes when I report news stories like this, some people take it out on me in the comments section as if I just made up the whole story. What's that old saying? Don't shoot the messenger. Well, in this case, old Maximus is just the messenger. But if there are times that something is strictly my opinion, I will always let you know up front. Well, like I was saying, Reuters ran a story last week after many of Qatar Airways pilots and first officers reached out to them anonymously out of fear for their jobs to tell them that Qatar Airways has been undercounting their work hours and ignoring complaints of fatigue. The pilots are calling this a safety breach that is unhealthy to staff and potentially puts passengers' lives at risk. These revelations come just months before the nation of Qatar hosts its first World Cup with Qatar Airways as the lead sponsor of the event. However, pilots say they are worried that the World Cup fans could be at risk due to ultra-long flights that are being operated by short-staffed and exhausted crews, adding with pressure made worse by the pandemic. One first officer, going by the pseudonym of Eric, said that recently on a 20-hour flight, he fell asleep during the descent of his aircraft with 400 passengers on board. He said you can't do anything. Your body is just screaming for rest. You feel the pain inside of your chest and you're unable to keep your eyes open. Eric and 6 other flight crew members said the airline's work hours were driving them to exhaustion because managers were refusing to give them enough rest. They said many never file fatigue reports, fearing additional scrutiny from an airline that has already laid off thousands of staff during the pandemic. But others that did report it said the reports were ignored or still didn't get the proper amount of rest to match the shift work. Eric said, "We're overworked and fatigued, but I never filled out a fatigue report because I don't want to be in the spotlight." Fatigue, of course, is a common problem for commercial airline pilots, but that also kind of goes along with the job. Most airlines have fatigue risk management systems in place to ensure pilots don't fly too many long-haul flights and to ensure they get adequate rest at their home base between flights. But according to Qatar pilots, for them at least, this is not the case. Reuters asked Qatar Airways whether it had noted an increase in fatigue or related safety concerns, how it calculated work and rest hours, and whether it was taking steps to make staff more comfortable with reporting fatigue. The airline said it was working to put the most rigorous fatigue risk management program in place. Back in 2020, Qatar Airways laid off 1 out of every 5 workers during the pandemic. Then in 2021, they cut their workforce by a further 27% to get down to a staff total of 36,700 employees. But also during the pandemic, they slashed their destination list to 33 cities in 2020, but then ramped it back up to more than 140 cities in 2021 as destinations reopened. But the problem is that Qatar ramped those flights back up without bringing back much of the staff they laid off. Pilots said that to manage those new flights with smaller crews, the airline was undercounting work hours to maximize operated flights while still technically playing by the rules. According to Qatar's operation manual, a flight crew member's inactive period has no bearing on the downtime he or she earns. As a result, much of a long-haul flight may be deemed inactive, even if a pilot is on standby and backing up colleagues. The manual states that for fatigue mitigation, in-flight rest does not count as flight time, straying from a standard calculation used by most civil aviation authorities. Eric said they count the hours in a different way. Eric said that not so long ago I was the 3rd pilot on duty. My job was monitoring the pilots in front, so essentially I was 100% active. The flight time was 1 hour and 33 minutes, but the counted time by the airline was only 3 minutes. That's what went towards my flying limit, he said. 2 fellow first officers logged in-flight hours for the first 2 weeks of January that exceeded 115 hours, above the 28-day limit of 100 hours listed in the airline's own manual. But the airline said it implemented enhanced terms and conditions for hours worked, but never provided details of what those new conditions were. One former crew member said work had left him so tired that when he was laid off last year, it came as a relief. "I thought, wow, I'm finally going to rest," he said. Crew members also said that their fatigue was impacting their sleep and mental health. An unidentified first officer said it causes stress, and if something happens work-related, he said you feel it extra strong. He said that he had dozed off unintentionally at least 10 times, usually during descents. "I mainly suffer from sleeping problems. Even when I'm tired, it's sometimes hard to fall asleep, which creates even more fatigue. I feel so tired I start to feel sick or drunk," he added. One first officer said he had filed 8 fatigue reports after falling asleep on more than a dozen recent flights. 3 were rejected outright. One approved request got him 24 hours rest in Doha, after which he was scheduled on a 23-hour turnaround flight to East Asia. 2 other crew members had all but one of their fatigue reports ignored. Another 2 said they had refrained from filing fatigue reports because they didn't want to risk losing their jobs. The airline's own 2020 fatigue survey said more than 90% of pilots surveyed had not filed a fatigue report in the last year, some due to concerns about losing their jobs. Less than half were confident in submitting safety reports. So that sounds like quite a problem for Qatar. But to be fair to Qatar, there are always 2 sides to every story, and hopefully Qatar will speak up and also give their pilots the proper rest they deserve. Well, that's going to wrap it up for now. Hey, I know people tend to think that all YouTubers are millionaires, but unfortunately most of us work 20-hour days just to eke out a living. But don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I mean, where else can you work from your bedroom in your boxer shorts making videos? Easy, not those kind of videos. But I bring that up to say this. I may not have the biggest aviation channel on YouTube yet, but my subscribers are the best and most loyal fans out there. And for that, I'm always humbled and grateful. So when subscribers like Dr. G buys 15 more virtual coffees, or it's me, Scotty, with 5, or Joshua Thigpen as well, it's just another example of the fantastic support you all provide. Not only does it help me reinvest in the channel, but more importantly, it's emotionally rewarding and pushes me to continue to strive to make the channel the best that it can be. So I just wanted to make sure to thank them and you for taking the time to check out Maximus Aviation. And of course, the always best and free way to support the channel is by simply clicking on that bright red subscribe button. That gesture is priceless. And as always, on your way out, don't forget to like, share, and ring the bell so you can be notified whenever we release new content. And remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.